January 11th, 2022 regular but remote meeting of the Burlington Board of Health to order. I don't think we need to rise, but I think we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Together, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
States
America,
of
United States of America,
to the
and to the republic
for which it stands,
for which it
one
stands,
nation, under
nation
God,
under God,
with
indivisible,
indivisible.
for
with
all.
liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm Ed Weiner, and I'm chairman of the Burlington Board of Health. And with me this evening, remotely, are Board of Health members David McSweeney, who's our vice chair, Andrea Sheehan, member, and member Dr. Wayne Salzman. Absent tonight is Mary Beth Welch, who had to work. Also with us this evening is Susan Luminello, Director of Public Health, Michael Green, Associate Director of Public Health, Christine Mathis, Environmental Engineer, Don McDowell, Recording Secretary, and Sarah Quartermash, our Administrative Assistant and Technology Whiz. Again, please note that we are live on BCAT and available for appropriate comments and questions through this video technology. I just want to note that, as I have said prior this evening, running a remote meeting is not easy. We have to do roll calls. We have to acknowledge everybody we possibly can and make sure that we see you. I'm just asking in advance for your forgiveness because it is quite a task to do this appropriately and successfully. We have first subcommittee minutes from December 8th. It was a meeting with the Conservation Commission. Do I have, is there any issues with these minutes, deletions, omissions, or do we have a motion to approve these subcommittee minutes?
So, Mr. Chair, I think I provided an update at the last, or even the meeting prior to the last meeting, on the subcommittee. So I think we're clear, and I saw no changes, so I can make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by David McSweeney, second by
Andrea.
Andrea Sheehan. All in favor? Now I
Aye.
have to do a roll call. I'm sorry. David McSweeney,
Aye.
Dr. Salzman,
Aye.
Ms. Sheehan,
Aye.
and I say aye. So 4-0-0. The next is citizens' time. Is there anybody on this call who would like to speak to the board on a topic that is not on our agenda? If so, please unmute yourself. If some of you are here to make comments on mask mandate or masking, we will be discussing that later on in the meeting. But if there's anything else, if anyone would like to speak to the board about any other issue, now is the time to unmute yourself. Is there anybody, Sarah, is there anybody online who would like to speak?
None that I can see at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. Which brings us to the chairman's report. Tonight I'll be rather short. Reported yesterday, and that including the weekend, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health provided the following data. There were almost 61,000 newly reported COVID cases. That's clearly an underestimation of the numbers because so many people are doing home tests and their results are not being reported. The positivity rate of those reported by the Commonwealth was 22.39%. There were almost 3,000 hospitalizations and unfortunately 53 new deaths. Burlington's last numbers that have been reported involve 84% of the individuals in our community have had at least one dose of vaccine, and 75% have been fully vaccinated. That's just an amazingly good number. The numbers for our town in terms of positivity are not reported, have not been reported yet over the last few days that I have been able to find. But I can tell you that from all that I see, it's no different than any other community in this area. What I want to do, though, is I do each meeting, I want to acknowledge our professional staff, our board members, clearly our board members, police, fire, DPW, and all the town departments who have worked so hard and made such a commitment to this region. It's been a real tough couple of weeks, as you all know, with the Omicron variant. These people, these professionals are the real heroes of this community. They do what they can to help to keep Burlington safe. And I want to say thank you to you all. It's a thankless job many times. I also want to thank BCAT for televising this meeting and for all of you that do to keep this community safe. And again, BCAT for keep this community so well informed. So last, you have heard this so many times. If you've not considered vaccination, get your flu shot. Socially distance, wear your mask indoors and in public, wash your hands, and if you feel sick, get tested and stay home. And again, I want to thank all of those that work to keep Burlington a safe place to live and work. You are the real heroes of this community. As I have always done, I open this up to any other board member who would like to make comment. Is there anybody else? Well, then we need to move on. We have a number of applications tonight. The first one is a special permit application for life science and biotechnology laboratory use in 3 Vandegraff Drive. Which of our attorneys are going to represent? Is there anybody here to represent 3 Vandegraff?
That would be me. I'm the lucky guy here, Mr. Chairman. Good
Mark Vaughn, I didn't see you. I could recognize you anywhere. Very good. Thank you, Mark.
I very pleased to be before you all. I guess I'm pleased to be anywhere right now, I guess, on those remarks. So and I do want to also acknowledge the job that your board and staff are doing. It's an unbelievable time that we've been in. So my accolades to everyone on your side in terms of the job that you're doing. I feel like I live in Burlington, even though I don't, the amount of time I spend there. So appreciate that. But here tonight in connection with the building at 3 Vandegraff Drive, which I think you're all familiar with the building, I'm sure. You probably drive by it once or twice a day if you're out and about. It's the building that's right at the end of Vandegraff where the SAP had their signage, and also Samsung Pay had their sign up there for a while. But representing Jumbo Capital, who purchased this building this past year and are very excited about the opportunity to repurpose this building historically that's been utilized for office space for lab and life science use. So the board may recall that a couple of years ago, the prior owner actually had petitioned the planning board to utilize a portion of the building for that use, about 105,000 square feet. Total building size is about 288,000. So At the time, the building property was in the general industrial, the IG zoning district. Since that time, through the efforts of the town and planning and economic development staff, this property has been put into the innovation district, which allows for life science and biotech use by right. Notwithstanding that, there are some ancillary special permits that we do need to obtain from the planning board. But basically, the application that's been submitted is to have the flexibility to utilize the entirety of the building for that use. We're not talking about expanding the building at all. It's the existing square footage that's there. There's no, new building that's being constructed. It's really the existing floors that are in there for lab and life science use. We have had the opportunity to meet extensively with your staff and Christine Mathis to go over the specifics of it. And, I know my client, Nick Trocchi, is here, but they have extensive experience in this arena. They own other properties throughout, Eastern Mass that are in, where they have life science and lab tenants. So they're very familiar with the landscape in terms of, what's involved, what the requirements are. And I know Christine has done Christine Mathis a great job of educating us in terms of, what your specific requirements are for reporting and for future tenants, what they would need to do and all that. So, and we have, a couple of team members here as well, if there's any specific questions that you may have relative to, anything about it. But we're excited about the opportunity to use this building, which for this use, which I think is, in keeping with the direction of the town to try to promote this use where possible. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I could turn it over to Nick if you'd like and have him give a quick presentation if it's helpful, but
Please.
okay.
Hey everyone, how's it going tonight? Thanks again for the time. And, to piggyback off Mark, being a local real estate operator, town government is super important, of course. And with everything going on COVID wise, it is truly speaks volume on this group specifically and how you guys are handling things in the town. So appreciate all of that effort from me and everyone at Jumbo Capital. So to piggyback off Mark, just to introduce myself, I'm Nick Trocchi. I'm a vice president with Jumbo Capital. We're a local real estate owner and operator. We have about 4.5 million square feet, and we specifically operate within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So very local landlord. We are somewhat new to Burlington. We've done a couple, projects in the town, one most recently down the street on Wheeler Road, but historically we've owned and operated commercial office space, life science space, really any, call it real estate asset class. So what we plan to do here at 3 Vandegraff is ultimately to convert this building into life science use. So the plan being to come in and capitalize on some of the in-place vacancy at the building, bring the infrastructure up to core and shell lab ready market standards, and then ultimately go forth and lease up that space with future tenants. We do have a good chunk of vacancy within the building, about 120,000 square feet. And the goal being to use that square footage as phase 1, ultimately converting the rest of the building with a phase 2 approach, but all of the infrastructure really bringing in now. So very high level overview on that front. From an execution standpoint, at this point, we are working through and kind of complete with our construction drawings, and we plan to submit for permits somewhat soon. We did have a DCM meeting earlier, and as Mark alluded to, we've been in constant conversation with the town. Just to note some of the others here with me on the call as part of the larger team, which we've put in place, is Amy Foley and Kyle Kins from the Richmond Group, who is the contractor, and I'm sure you guys know that name from lab builders around the town. I got RJ Panzo on here, who's with T3 Advisor, who is our life science advisor. RJ's worked in labs and has kind of helped us shape the execution of this project and ultimately meet the market and what true lab tenants need. We also have Jennifer Riley on here, who's with Safety Partners. call it code compliance and operational compliance, and John Carcerio, who is project manager, who's working with me on kind of the execution side of things. So full team here, kind of covering different aspects of the job. Thought it'd be useful to have them on in case we have come across any questions that I can't answer. But yeah, so that's generally speaking, quick overview. As part of the Board of Health, we are going to be putting in a centralized pH neutralization system that will be sized appropriately for future tenant use. And then really everything thereafter will be on the tenant responsibility in terms of programming and things along those lines with hazardous control areas and everything in that realm.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from your team who'd like to speak?
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman. I think certainly if there's questions, but we didn't want to.
Christine Mathis, would you please provide us any insight that you may have? Christine Mathis is our environmental engineer. Christine, are you there? Well, until
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'm on my phone and I can see you guys, but can't get on. So I'm on the phone. Just to add, as Nick said, they'll have the centralized wastewater pH neutralization system, but each tenant in the space will be responsible for the management of their virgin hazardous materials as well as the management of their hazardous waste that they would generate in their spaces, meaning that each tenant would also have, a contractor that would come on site to pick up the hazardous waste from their controlled area. One of the conditions I just wanted to highlight was that, as always, each tenant will have to come back to this board for a biological safety permit. Each tenant will have to file a hazardous materials registration for both the virgin hazardous materials that they use and any hazardous waste they generate, and the building ownership will have to file a hazardous materials registration for the chemicals that they control and use in the pH neutralization system. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman,
That sums it up.
I have a couple of questions, or actually one, or maybe two questions, because most of them were just answered. So thanks, Christine, for that.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. And I don't know if this is for Mark or for Nick, but it sounds like you currently have tenants that are non-biohazard. Is the intent, or is the possible outcome with this building that you would have tenants that are non-biohazard and tenants that are? Or is the intent to switch over the building to 100% biotechnology tenants?
The intent is for this building to be a 100% biotech user.
Okay, but in the meantime,
Multi-tenanted, most
Right.
likely, but all biotech in nature.
but in the meantime, you will have non-biotech businesses subletting the same space or adjacent space to biotech?
Correct. So there is two in-place tenants, one being Sophos, one being Raytheon. They both occupy really the first floor of the building, which, as you may know, the building is tiered where it's a large single-story floor plate, and then it steps up in the tower portion. We are focusing the biotech in that tower portion. So the in-place tenants are really separated from the biotech tenants by really control areas. So it's almost a separate 2-hour fire radiation between the two tenants. But to answer your question simply, yes, there will be.
Yeah, and I totally get it, and don't read into my questions. I support this project. I just want to make sure we're thinking through all the components. And Christine, I don't think we have a situation like that where we have mixed use even temporarily for a period of time. And I could be wrong, but I don't believe we do. So I would say that we should pay attention to that, and make sure that we have the appropriate controls in place and access in place, because what we don't want is somebody that's an employee from the non-biotech somehow stumbling into the biotech side. And I know that's rare, but it can happen. So again, just calling it out that it's something we probably want to ensure that we have visibility to.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and we do have that situation in town, Mr. Vice Chair. Over at Network Drive, we have a permitted biotech facility in one of the Network Drive suites, and non-biotech uses in other suites in that building.
Okay.
But we do
Thank you.
have that distinction, and when the tenants come back for their biological safety permits, we'll get into
We can address
the
it then.
details
Yeah,
of
for sure.
security and
Yep. Totally get it.
segregation of tenants.
Thank you.
the only thing
This
I was
is
going to add, if I could, to Mr. McSweeney is on that point is that, there are the building code and fire code issues all are germane to that as well, that we would need to, comply with. And, the other thing I would mention is that, even for a life science biotech tenant, a fair amount of that space is actually utilized as pure office as well. So,
Right.
it's kind of a hybrid in terms of the implementation of it, but all good points, but, things that would be properly addressed.
Thank you. No other questions, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question on that. This is Susan. Who's responsible for the security, the key cards? Is that going to be the tenant, or are you putting that all in prior to them moving in? Is it going to be key carded? The
So
different.
we'll be building, I guess, if you look at it from a building access perspective to common areas, those would all be on a house system. But to get into tenant-specific spaces, that will be tenant security systems that they will operate per our building standard. But yes, and to piggyback on it as well, that's one reason Safety Partners is helping us out here, is to help us, really write the operational materials that go along with these tenants and the caveats within their leases as well.
So it's the tenants, just to follow up, it's the tenants that will be installing the security systems for their spaces?
Correct.
Yeah, and
They
just
all
to
said-
chime in on the security systems, oftentimes as those tenants are controlling their space, they'll have additional levels of control that only lab-trained individuals will have access to the laboratories, whereas, as was alluded to earlier, it's often a mixed use of 60-40, maybe 60% lab, 40% office space. So office workers, even within that company, wouldn't necessarily have lab access. And it can be, controlled at different levels within the building and within each tenant.
Thank you. Ms. Sheehan, do you have any questions?
No, I don't, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and Dr. Saltzman?
No, I'm good. Thank you. In fact, I'll even make a motion.
No, please, would you please hold off, Dr. Saltzman? I have a number of questions. You wouldn't expect anything else, would you? The first question I have is, I'm not sure if this is for our environmental engineer or Mr. Trokey. Is this a building that resides on a contaminated area? Is this someplace that has a history of contamination?
There is contamination. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is across the street from the groundwater pump and treat system that is currently operating for the former high voltage Belfram facility. But that pump and treat system and that plume is really underneath the properties across the street owned by Oracle. There are a couple of wells on the corner of this property closest to the road that are part of that monitoring system, but this proposal doesn't have any outside disturbances or anything. It's just a building remodel. So that system will not be affected by this change.
So, Mr. Trocchi, you're not going to decommission any wells that are on the property?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. I never ask questions I don't know the answer to. Mr. Buckley taught me that. The wastewater treatment system. Now, this is a central system. Do you foresee that it be necessary, or is this something that you are just putting in there without an idea of who is going to be moving in as a first area of safety, or first safety line? Is this just something that you put in because you're looking for specific tenants, or is this something that you're doing generically? Maybe the word is.
I would say it's a bit of both. So we are putting in the centralized pH system to ultimately have a core and shell infrastructure ready for biological or chemistry users. So the pH system, as it relates to biotech, is really for cleaning that water before it goes into sanitary. So opposed to dealing with tenant by tenant, where you may be able to get away with chip tanks or other types of parameters that the MWRA would kind of impose on that respect. We're putting in the system so it's already there for the tenants.
Now, that requires certain maintenance. Who is responsible for the maintenance? And is that in the lease, so whomever is responsible takes care of it?
So that is part of our operation and manual of the building. As I mentioned, Jumbo Capital, we also have a property management division. So we have in-house property management that will be operating this site, all licensed under MWRA to be able to handle and work on pH systems of this nature.
Thank you. Now, Christine Mathis, are you still there? Our environmental engineer? Or maybe
Yes.
I'll ask, do you require maintenance reports from this type of a central system?
This is the first one that, well, not the first one that you looked at, because we looked at one during the last meeting for a different address, but I don't think there are any operating currently in town. But the MWRA does an inspection before they'll issue a permit, and then they do annual inspections, but it would be something. So, for example, when I do my annual inspection at Millipore, that I look at their wastewater treatment system, that's a little different because it is just one tenant or one user, but it's the system. The systems themselves are pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you.
So it'd be looked at as part of the annual inspections that I conduct.
Now, you're putting in this type of wastewater treatment system. What about a system that will pick up all of the fume hoods that will be necessary for all of those different companies? Is there a central air handling system for fume hoods, or is that individual per each laboratory?
So we will have a centralized exhaust system, and that is part of the HVAC infrastructure that we are putting on the building ultimately to allow for these users to come in and operate at the building. So there will be a centralized system that will be allocated by tenant and basically split off as the tenants fill up the spaces.
So who monitors that central? Is that part of your maintenance system too, especially if these issues of odors or fumes or whatever? Who will be monitoring that system?
So the tenant will be responsible to self-monitor per NIH guidelines. In that respect, we as the landlord will be responsible for the unit operation and maintenance. So switching out MERV 13 filters, doing preventative maintenance on the equipment, things along those lines.
Okay. And then the last is just a statement for those people who are listening in. And this is an early approval. This is an early approval because we don't know, I don't think you know who is going in there at this time. And each tenant, which means each biotech company, is responsible to obtain a biological safety permit from the Board of Health. And that's when we get to look at these individual companies very, very closely and to ensure safety within the community. In addition, they will also need to apply for and adhere to the town of Burlington control of toxic and hazardous materials within that bylaw and participate in the hazardous material registration. So I just want to make sure that those of you listening in understand that this is very early. This is getting the building ready for tenants who will then have to go under our microscope to make sure that we feel as a Board of Health and as a community comfortable with them coming to Burlington. There are 8 proposed conditions. Mr. Trokey and Mr. Vaughn, have you seen those 8 conditions?
We have, Mr. Chairman, yes.
And do we have any issues with those conditions whatsoever?
No, we always have issues, as you know, but no, I think that we're fine with them, and I Nick, unless you feel otherwise, I think they're acceptable and consistent with how we intend to utilize and monitor things. So.
Yep, I certainly agree with you, Mark.
And as you know, we are very excited about having biotech, appropriate and safe biotech, come to this community. Now, you have requested 2 special permits. Is that correct? Not just one?
The special permits that are before the planning board are consistent with what was granted before, back in a couple of years ago. But we obviously included as well the, let's see, I'm just looking at it here. Bear with me one moment. Special permit for hazardous toxic materials, chemical use storage, as well as the generation of hazardous waste as well. So those were included, but
Susan or Christine, is that one or is that 2 separate special permits? I don't want to hold things up by doing one, and if there are 2 necessary.
I think our comments apply to both. Is that correct, Christine?
They do. But to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, that there are 2 different uses under the zoning bylaw. So technically that's 2 special permits, but our conditions are applicable to both of those special permit uses.
Okay. So, do we have to spell them out or just want to make sure it's, just want to make sure that they have the exact, hazardous toxic materials, chemicals, usage, storage, disposal, and discharge. And then the other is generation or storage of hazardous waste in excess of the volumes classified in a very small quantity generator. Those are the 2?
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
Mr.
Please.
Chairman, so 2 things. I would recommend that we do it two permits just to make sure, special permits, just to make sure that we don't hold them up or they need to come back before us. And secondly, I'll make a motion to approve the first one, so we can do them one at a time, or can we take them both together?
Let's do them let's do
One
them
at a time.
one at a time. So in case there, make
And
sure.
I'm sorry, I don't have, what was the first permit you mentioned?
Hazardous and toxic materials, chemical use storage, transport, disposal, or discharge.
So I'll make a motion to approve that for 3 Vandergraaf Drive, Burlington.
Second.
I have a second by Dr. Saltzman. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Oh,
Aye.
you have to do roll call, don't you?
Well, roll call. David McSweeney,
Aye.
Dr. Wayne Saltzman,
Aye.
Ms. Andrea Sheehan,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That's 4-0-0. And now the motion for approval or disapproval of generation or storage of hazardous waste in excess of the volumes classified as a very small quantity generator, VSQG.
Motion to approve.
I have a
Second.
motion approved by Mr. McSweeney, second by Dr. Saltzman. All in favor, Mr. McSweeney,
Aye.
Dr. Saltzman,
Aye.
Ms. Sheehan,
Aye.
and I vote aye, 4-0-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chairman and board members. Appreciate the time. So stay safe and be well.
Very
Thanks,
good.
folks.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
coming.
that. Thank you all. Have a great night.
And we'll see your tenants soon, hopefully.
Certainly. Thank you.
You're all welcome to stay, but if you'd like to leave, you can leave. Welcome to
All right.
Burlington.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right. Now we have application for a special permit, 25 Network Drive, Vericel Corporation. Very interesting. Mr. Buckley, who will be presenting?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Robert Buckley, and I will be presenting, and I have with me this evening some representatives from Vericel Corporation, primarily Mike Halpern, who's the COO. I would attempt to try to share a picture if possible. Does someone have to authorize me to share the
I
screen?
will.
No?
Ms. Quartermash, can you do that?
Can you see that?
You should be able to click the share button at the bottom of your screen. It may take a little bit to hover over it.
So if I share the screen, I want to go to, okay. Do you have that?
Yeah.
Do you have the picture of the,
No, not yet.
how about that? No? Hello?
No, I think you need to get it, boot it up on your computer and then hit the share button, or is that?
I had it on, I had the picture, it was on my computer, but needless to say, I'll just orally tell you about the building, which was previously approved by the planning board at 25 Network Drive. It was done earlier this year. It's a 270,000 square foot life science building that was designed specifically for life science use. And we are currently before the planning board for a user, Vericel Corporation, that is going to occupy one half of the building. They are relocating from Cambridge, and they will make this their corporate office, as well as it will become operational. They'll have lab utilization of the building. I think this is a testament to all the hard work that this board did over the last probably 4 or 5 years in conjunction with the planning board and town meeting to position Burlington to be an attractive alternative to other life science clusters. Burlington is very rapidly becoming a life science cluster. And I'll let Mike tell you a little about Vericel, what they do, and then answer any questions. Before I do that, though, I'd like to acknowledge that we've worked closely with the staff of the Board of Health to go over the operations and answer any questions they have, and they have prepared the conditions that have been distributed to us, which I believe we're okay with. So I know Mike is on. I saw him earlier.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Mr. Halpin, why
Yes,
don't you please tell the board a little back of your background? You have a very outstanding background in the pharmaceutical industry, and I think they need to know a little bit about you and as you tell them about Vericel.
sure. Okay, so I have probably 30 years in the pharmaceutical, medical device, and biotechnology area. I have a master's degree in biomedical engineering. And I've worked at a number of companies, but most probably Relevant for this group is I spent 15 years at Genzyme as well as Sanofi Corporation, and I spent the last 5 years at Vericel. I'm the Chief Operating Officer, and Vericel is a biotechnology company, and we make autologous cell therapies to treat injuries, particularly cartilage defects and burn injuries. And an autologous cell therapy is essentially taking tissue biopsies from patients, isolating the cells, which you can then use to reconstruct tissues, and combining them with constructs, expanding the cells through culture media techniques, combining them with constructs, and then creating essentially tissue engineered combination products. The two that we currently commercialize are for cartilage defects in the knee. So say that you injure or rupture your ACL, you may tear a piece of cartilage out of your knee. That's a non-vascular area of the body, so it doesn't grow back by itself. So we can take a non-load bearing part of the cartilage, isolate the cells, grow them back, put it on a collagen construct, and then a surgeon can implant that in the area where the defect is, and you can grow back your cartilage. We have a similar product that's used for severely burned patients, and we can take a full thickness biopsy from a patient's skin, isolate keratinocytes, and then we can grow sheets of essentially the top layer of your skin and begin to repair patients who have typically burns in the 50% of total body surface area or greater. So those are kind of our two products. What we do in the manufacturing facility is essentially we'll digest the biopsies, isolate the cells, we'll culture them and expand them to grow more cells, we'll cryopreserve them in order to prepare for a surgery date. And then when we have an agreed upon surgery date with the surgeon, we'll again thaw those cells, expand them, and then create three-dimensional constructs and deliver those directly to the hospital to be used in the surgery.
And Michael, you're presently in Cambridge and you'll be relocating
Yeah,
here?
so in terms of, we've been operating in Cambridge since I think the mid-1990s, and we're a publicly traded company now, and we're growing fairly rapidly. We've sort of expanded beyond what we currently have in Cambridge, and we're looking to, we're in approximately 70,000 square feet of space within two buildings in Cambridge. And we're looking to move out to a larger space, approximately 125,000 square feet. And, 25 Network Drive in the Burlington area is on the top of our list of places to go, just due to what's around here and, sort of the biotechnology growth here, the commuting, et cetera. So we're really looking forward to this opportunity and moving into this building. We're going to be doing a combination of our corporate headquarters, so we'll have office space, but we'll also have lab space, and we'll have light manufacturing space where we do our cell culturing and aseptic processing.
And for the board's information, Mr. Chairman, assuming we are granted the permit by the planning board, I believe we're on the agenda for the 20th. It is anticipated that the owner of the property will commence construction shortly thereafter. So this is a real deal, and a real testament to the efforts that have gone in by this board, as I said earlier, and others in the community to attract this type of user to the community. So with that, we'll answer any questions you may have.
Does anybody have any questions? Well, I'll go through. Mr. McSweeney, do you have any?
Sorry, I was on mute, Mr. Chairman. I don't. Just a comment in general, not about this project, but as just in the prior permit that just was here, and it seems to be almost every board meeting, we have a biotechnology company wanting to move into our community. And kind of what Mr. Buckley was alluding to or was saying, this is, where there's other communities where they don't know what to do with building spaces and vacancies in office buildings. I think this is a testament that having such a great company, as I'm very familiar with this organization. come into this town. It brings jobs to this town. It brings income into this town. And I think it's great. So very supportive of this permit.
Thank you very much. Dr. Saltzman, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't. I think just tagging on to Mr. McSweeney, we've become accustomed, and this clearly is a well-reputed company, and we look forward to having it join our community.
Thank you. Ms. Sheehan?
No, I just, I just think the comments that have been made proactively about them coming to Burlington is wonderful. We're really going to be happy to have you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, can I make an aside comment?
Well, look, can you hold that, Mr. Buckley, till I ask my questions?
Well, it relates to what Mr. McSweeney said.
Please.
I just would like the board to understand that I have heard in other communities, most recently, a community west of here about a week ago, where the comment was that Burlington's Board of Health or their regulatory scheme is one of the best in terms of overseeing what is going on and making sure that things are followed through on. So they couldn't believe the level of review and regulation that goes on. And this is a community that is active in the industry. So again, you've done it the right way, and I would like to acknowledge that so people at home can understand the amount of work that went into to position the town to attract this type of use, which is a use that will flourish and grow here.
You can speak anytime, Mr. Buckley. You're going to say things like
except
that.
at 2:30 in the morning, I look like I'm asleep, right?
Mr. Halpin, are you going to have some very large carbon dioxide tanks there? Is there a place for those there, or is that something you'll need for tissue culture?
Yes, and we're going to have a large CO2 tank, a large nitrogen tank, and then we're going to have a backup generator, which is going to be diesel run, essentially,
Right,
on
you've
the
got it.
outside of the building.
That was my next question. Christine Mathis, are you aware of all of that? I lost.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Yeah,
No,
thank you.
I'm here.
We'll need
And
to take a look at that next meeting. Thank you.
Yep, and they'll again be back before you for biological safety safety permit down the road a bit.
Thank you. This is not only cutting edge technology and Star Wars technology, this is life-saving technology. This is very important work. This is cell culture work, cell tissue culture work I've done for many years. And I am so excited they're coming and you've chosen this community. I think you'll be very happy here. You'll have a lot of oversight, but also I can tell you, you'll be very happy with this community. We are biotech friendly because we understand it. We are biotech friendly because we work together to make sure that your company and the community feels very, very safe. And I want to thank you very, very much. With that, do I have a motion for approval? And we're looking for a special permit for Life Science and Technology Laboratory Use 25 Network Drive, and I guess we say Vericel Corporation.
So moved.
I think that was Dr. Saltzman. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by, I think it was Ms. Sheehan, correct?
Either.
Ms. Sheehan?
Yes.
All in favor? Mr. McSweeney?
Aye.
Dr. Saltzman?
Aye.
Ms. Sheehan?
Aye.
And I vote aye, 4-0-0. Thank you for coming. We look forward to seeing you again, and welcome to Burlington.
Mr. Chairman, one final request, everyone stay healthy.
Thank you so much. Mr. Buckley, thank you for all you do. And I will mention that he and I happened to cross paths at 2:30 in the morning on Christmas Eve, feeding the homeless. And as I say to you every year that you show up between 2 and 2:30, thank you for all that you do.
I believe it's my twin because I don't remember it at all.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
night.
For the
All
people
right,
who
good
hear
night.
us, though,
Thank you
you're
for your
welcome to.
time.
All
Thanks
right.
for coming in.
Our next um, agenda item is discussion mask mandate. And I want to say that we have a very large crowd online tonight, and I think that's wonderful. I want you to note that these are issues of science tonight, constitutional rights, business, freedom, and being smart and being safe. I'm going to ask that you please, everybody here, be professional. Let's one person speak at a time. I'm going to let everybody on this line speak if they would like, but let's be cordial. We're all part of the Burlington community, and let's not get emotional. Let's stick to the facts, and let's talk about the issue that we have promised to discuss at every meeting. I've spent a lot of time with this. I've spent a lot of time on the phone. My board members have spent a lot of time on the phone. With us this evening is a selectman and the town administrator. They have spent a huge amount of time on this, as well as our professional staff of our director, associate director, our administrative staff, as well as our environmental engineer. Everybody, this is a very, very important, and as I said, it's a political as well as scientific issue that we're going to be talking, as well as being smart. I want to tell you, and I want to take a minute here about all of the arguments that I have encountered in the past 3 or 4 weeks. And some of them are just statements. For instance, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health does not recommend a mask mandate. The governor does not recommend a mask mandate. The question of mask mandate and enforcement, a question that we hear from our colleagues all over, is one of enforcement. Our police, our fire, our Board of Health, local store owners, today, others that I spoke to in other departments, including recreation and other departments, none of which will enforce any mask mandate that we consider. One of the questions is who is going to handle complaints, the hundreds and hundreds of complaints that other communities receive. It will not be the local store owners, it won't be the police, it won't be the fire. I suggest maybe the selectmen, but Nick Priest, our selectman, is smiling, but it's a real consideration. We have also heard, and I have received emails about public confrontations. We've had many reports, many local reports. I have even witnessed one of these. Some of which say that this is not a clinical or a political issue, it's a constitutional issue, the right not to wear a mask, and others say maybe it's the right to wear a mask, a mandatory. What is a mask? I'm not sure anymore after tonight. We saw CDC says that our current masks are not masks which are appropriate. They have questions about masks and about N95 masks, their availability. I question their costs, but now CDC is recommending only N95 masks. Other questions and other issues that I've been confronted with. Who is actually being protected? I don't want to sound hard-hearted because I am a medical professional. Wear a mask and don't worry about those who put themselves at risk. That's what I hear a lot. I hear a lot about that. The people wearing masks are not protecting themselves, they're protecting other people who don't care. Just an issue. And why should you care if someone doesn't have a mask on? You just mind your own business, as many people have told me. Will this help businesses? Some say yes. Some say it's going to ruin business. What if somebody mentioned that I have a lung disease, COPD, asthma? I can't wear a mask. I have heart disease. I can't wear a mask. Where does that put me? Some of the questions that have been put to me. Masks in restaurants. You can't wear them and eat. People take them off. They're small areas. Do mask mandates work? And the answer I'm going to tell you right now is I don't know. Looking at the surrounding neighbors have had no real effect. And we saw that only today where leaders in another community said there's no difference in Burlington versus their community, and they have a mask mandate. And I've heard this. Leave me alone. I'm a senior citizen. I want to live out my life the way I want to. I'll take the risk from the senior center. And last two, which I think are kind of important, is what some of our board members have said, and people throughout this community, aren't the people of Burlington smart enough to wear a mask? Why not post a public health recommendation everywhere? And I will also note that to our selectman priest, who I have spoken to, and that is an option tonight. But last, we follow the Massachusetts Department of Public Health at this point in time, and they do not recommend, nor does the governor recommend masks. I decided to put these 17 issues together because this is what I am confronted with every single day. And I like to win games. The Patriots like to win games. My grandchildren like to win games. And I feel right now that when I get a call with any 1 or 5 or 10 of these issues, very difficult for me to win because I'm trying to do the best thing for everyone, as is this board trying to do the best thing. So with that, I will open it up first, and I have been asked to provide opinion from first the Director of Public Health in our community, Susan Luminello, who promised me that she would make comments, and that will be followed by our new associate director of public health, Michael Green. This is the first time he'll be able to express his and show off his knowledge. First, Ms. Luminello.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, like you said, this is an opinion. This is my opinion from what I've been seeing, what I've been hearing. We've gotten many emails. They've all been forwarded to you. I am in favor of masks, although I am not in favor of a mask mandate. So I haven't changed my opinion from the last meeting that we had. I'm still standing behind the points that I made at that meeting. And I know that this is very difficult for people because we do have such a high percent positivity at this time. And it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction to want to do something about this. Although I do feel that masks are one tool in the toolbox, and we have other ones like social distancing, like limiting gatherings, like vaccination. There's other things that need to be done in conjunction with masking, and everybody needs to, we need to go back to that personal responsibility. As I said at the last meeting, COVID is going to be here. It's not going to go away. If we do a mask mandate, we have to decide when do we decide to lift it? We're going to keep it in constantly. What about limiting gatherings and social distancing? Are we going to do that next and mandate that? We're going to go back to the way that we were a year ago. And are we going to do that just in the town of Burlington? So that's another question, is that I feel that if something like this is done, it has to be done on a statewide basis and not done individual by individual towns, that we move from town to town, and we all have to be doing the same thing. We all have to take responsibility. And again, I am in favor of personal responsibility and people doing the right thing for themselves and for their families.
Thank you very much. Mr. Green. Mr. Green is our new Associate Director of Public Health. He comes to us from Minnesota. This is his first month in his new position, and we're so happy to have him, especially during this time of year in this pandemic situation. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Ed. Residents of Burlington. I couldn't have said it any better. I think Susan might have stolen my write-up, honestly. I couldn't have viewed it more similar. I think we're dealing with statistics and probabilities. You know, I wear my seatbelt when I'm in a car. I wear eye protection when I'm at the range. I've been vaccinated. I wear masks when I'm in crowds. Not so much for me, but for others who might not have, you know, my genetic makeup, my immune system. Masks, when properly worn, in conjunction with vaccines, distancing, hand washing, I think these do cut down the rate of infection and the spread of COVID. Enforcing that is very difficult. We've had many issues when I was in Minnetonka, Minnesota with enforcement, and it seemed counterproductive to public health with as much time as we spent on that. I felt we could have been better served pushing vaccinations, lining up clinics for that, testing, getting people the information and knowledge about isolating, and I think that would be a better use of our time here at the Board of Health. But I'm here for you, Dr. Ed, so whatever direction you point me in.
I'll ask first the other members of the Board of Health before we go on. We'll open this up. And so why don't we start with our Vice Chair, Mr. David McSweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, you know, I'll give, you know, some comments, but I would love to hear some comments as well, because I try to keep an open mind from the folks that are online or calling in. And I do, and again, I said this at the last meeting, I appreciate you keeping this on the agenda, because I do think it's our responsibility to continue to weigh what's going on with the pandemic and if we need to make changes on the fly. And it does open us up to both criticism and praise, and we do receive personal criticism, which I hope it would be more. You know, we're here volunteering, trying to do what's best. So hopefully the criticism dies off. But certainly the good and the bad comments. So, you know, I'm trying to keep an open mind, and I appreciate you keeping it on the agenda, because I do think it's something that we're responsible to continue to talk about, and if things change and or have changed, that we can quickly move to do what we can to protect the community. But to be quite honest with you, I see a comment that this should be 100% science-based and not logic-based, and certainly that seems right, you know, off the top. However, you know, that's not all how decisions are 100% made. And if that was the case, we would be closing all liquor stores, bars, and smoke shops in the town of Burlington. And that's not logic at all. So I do think, and I've been supportive of masks and wearing masks. I do wear masks when I feel like I need to. I also social distance. I also wash my hands. I'm fully vaccinated, and I'm not saying that, you know, to say I'm better than anybody else. I'm just saying that it is a community that makes this work, and I think we have to start thinking about what life is like with COVID, because it's not going away anytime soon. And we have to look at holistically what, putting a program in place, if we can effectively manage it, and if it's going to fail, what's the sense of putting it in place? And I do believe mask mandate would fail, and it's not off the cuff. It's not a political opinion. It's not even subjective. We've done our research. We have talked to the other communities. I personally have talked to the other communities that have mask mandates. There are some leaders on those boards of health that don't want the that we don't want they don't want the mask mandate, and they've, as Dr. Weiner has said at the top, that their infection rates actually are worse than since they put the mask mandates in. And there's other communities that abolished their mask mandates because they didn't work, and it caused a bunch of other problems. I think that, because of the complexity of a mask mandate, it would be very difficult for us to manage. And I do believe our staff would be better served in focusing on how do we educate, get citizens to comply in all matters, right? I think it's hard we're seeing an increase because of the holidays, most likely because of the holidays, and where that people didn't practice social distancing, or they were in large crowds, went to holiday parties. And then they turn around and there's an increase in COVID, and then they're looking for the local boards of health to put a policy in place that's really not going to change the trajectory of the disease in the infection rate. So, I would love to hear from other citizens and other board members. For me, since we last talked about it 2 weeks ago, and I just see a comment here too. How does Lexington and Billerica manage their mask mandates? They don't manage it at all. They put it in place, and it's not managed. And I don't think that helps anybody. But in any event, I would love to hear back. I do want to keep an open mind. I do wear masks and think they help, and I think people should wear masks where they're out in public and in large gatherings. But I don't believe it is the right policy for this at this time.
Thank you. Andrew, would you like to speak?
Sure. I know the word mandate carries like such severity, but I think about it in a couple of ways. I mean, when you look at the numbers from last week to this week, they've doubled, and they're not small numbers. I think about driving in the car and it says wear your seatbelt, which I comply with, but it's also a law. If I break it, I get in trouble. I always err on the side of caution. And when I see maybe a mandate doesn't work, but the recommendations from the CDC are not working either. So I feel we're at a crossroad at this point in time, even if it's for a short period of time, to do things differently, because so many people are affected by this, and so many people are not wearing masks or social distancing or wearing them in a crowded place. I think we have a very serious situation on our hands, and I feel like we probably need to make an act on it.
Thank you. Dr. Saltzman. Dr. Saltzman is a physician and a member of the Board of Health.
Thank you, Dr. Weiner. I've been on this board for 15 years, and as my time is winding down on this board, I never thought that I would be making recommendations as a physician, or thinking as a physician as much as I was thinking about being an elected board member. But I have, as you all know, since March of 2020, I have been advocating for everything that we can do to help battle this pandemic, or at least stabilize this pandemic. I have read the 40 plus emails that the Board of Health received, both in favor and against a mask mandate. I appreciate that our town has taken active positions in maintaining the deliberation. For those emails who said we should stop talking about this on the board level, I completely disagree. As I think other board members and our chair have said, we need to deliberate, we need to be thoughtful, we need to hear each other, we need to realize that we are all in this together. And I appreciate the collegiality in the general tone, whether one was for or against. I very much appreciate those who recognize the significant work that the Board of Health staff has done over the past 2+ years with regard to this pandemic. It has been yeoman's work. It's been amazing work. There was a letter that said that this individual came to Burlington to shop because Burlington was mask optional. Let me be clear. This board has maintained a mask advisory since after there was an initial mandate a year ago. I would definitely not view the Burlington position as a mask optional one. There is an advisory. People should be wearing a mask. But let me go back to what our director said, for which I completely support and echo, is that we have been educated, we have understood the science, we have tools in our toolbox. We need to be vaccinated. We have effective vaccines. And to fill in those gaps, we should be wearing a mask. We should be social distancing. We should isolate if we are ill. We should be washing our hands. We should be doing all of those things. This is not a mask optional town. This is a town that advocates for a mask advisory currently. I have reviewed so many articles, as has our chair. I follow the CDC, DPH daily, if not multiple times during the day. It is very confusing on many levels, especially as the CDC changes and tries to accommodate with this changing virus. But I have not seen any data which would lead me to believe that a mask mandate is the appropriate scientific way to go for our town. So in that regard, I echo what Mr. McSweeney said. I am more than happy to deliberate and to discuss and to see what the citizens are thinking. But with regard to the science, sure. Are there anecdotes that a mask mandate reduces deaths? Absolutely. Was that from a year ago data when death was the major issue appropriately on the table? Absolutely. But now I am not seeing that data. I am not seeing that that mask mandates are absolutely the way that we should be following. I respect our board member, Ms. Sheehan, who just said perhaps we need to look at things a little bit differently. Sure, happy to discuss that. But for now, I am still of the belief that Burlington should maintain its mask advisory, that we should remember that we are citizens that are in this together, that we should be vaccinated and boosted if it is safe for our health to do so, and we should be following those social guidelines that we should all become familiar with. And let me just end by saying I am thrilled to see our select board and our town administration represented here. We as the board make recommendations, and we definitely appreciate the difficulties in making public policy that town meeting and central administration and select board make. But as of right now, my recommendation to those entities is that we maintain a mask advisory and do what we can to allow the Board of Health to further educate our members, our citizens, on on the social aspect of public health with regard to this virus. Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me the time.
Okay. Mr. Priest, I invited you as a representative from the selectmen. I know you and I have discussed this on a number of occasions. I also see that Mr. Sagarino is online, and I would like him to, if he would like to join in. But Mr. Priest, as a representative of the selectmen, please, would you make comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone who's here, both the board and all the residents who are taking the time out of their evening to participate in the conversation. I think Dr. Saltzman's right in saying that we should keep deliberating regardless. I think that's extremely important to general public discourse, and things can change, and we shouldn't just put nails in coffins and pretend like that conversation's over. I came here tonight because I wanted to well, for a couple of reasons. One, first off, to thank the Board of Health for everything that they've been doing. I don't think that we've properly thanked the board and Susan and your staff enough for everything over the past 2 years. I think Yoma's work may even be an understatement, Dr. Salzman. The things I've been hearing, the work, the time, and the hours that have been put in, handling this and working with residents. So thank you very much. I think that, um, we, we'll probably be thanking you for the next 10 years, let's be honest. But I also wanted just to come and say that, the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board, I'm sorry, as it has for the last 2 years, stands by the Board of Health's decisions, and whatever we can do to help. We recently set aside $1 million of the ARPA fund that the town received, to a general bucket to help deal with the pandemic. So whatever decisions that you make coming from this meeting or any future meetings, we set aside funding. And even if that means that we want to up signage for the mask advisory, and just help, just again, Dr. Sultan, I know you said this multiple times over the past couple of years: educate, right? And I think that a big part of education is awareness. And so if we feel like we need to be getting the message out there in a more impactful or stronger way, the select board is here to help support. So thank you very much for having me and for the time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sagarino, would you like to weigh in? You are here as a guest. You are the town administrator, one of the best we've ever had. Would you like to say a few words, or are you just going to listen in this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. My lungs aren't working that great tonight from my battle with COVID, but I just want to let everybody know how grateful that we are as a central administration for the Board of Health's leadership throughout this crisis and Susan's leadership throughout this crisis. And, we stand ready to support whatever decisions the board may make during the course of the pandemic. We will work with you to implement whatever you feel needs to be done for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I just chatted with everyone here. If there's anybody here who would like to speak, please just put your name in the chat. I'll let everybody speak at least once. And I look forward to this discussion. Is there anybody who would like to speak? And if you can't chat, just raise your hand, or you can just jump in right now.
Mr. Chairman, we have a few that would like to speak. Barbara LaRue, Phil McLean. They put their names in this. You want me to go down the list? Barbara LaRue is first.
I'm gonna look at it real quick right now. I see quite a few, and that's perfect. That's perfect. I think it's really important. Barbara LaRue is a member of our planning board, and She's also a leader in this community. Barbara, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Dr. Weiner. Yes, I would. First of all, I want to reiterate what Nick Priest said and also Dr. Saltzman. I'm very grateful for the hard work that the Board of Health has been doing for these past 2 years. I know it has been an enormous workload and one that you did not intend to take on when you took on this role. No one could have anticipated this. So I'm very grateful for the work that you're doing. I do have some questions about this particular issue. What I'm mainly hearing tonight is a lot of logistical arguments about why a mask mandate is difficult to manage and difficult to police, and how do you know when to end it and things like that. But what I'm not hearing is, what is the public health argument? What is best for our residents and people who come to work and shop here? What is the best public health decision for them? And then, based on what decision you make, we can figure out what, if anything, can be done to manage and police it. I know that I go around a lot. I'm out living my life as carefully as I can, but I'm in neighboring towns that have mask mandates. And maybe they're not policing them, but people, for the most part, are obeying them. And when I'm here in Burlington, I see a marked difference. Many fewer people are wearing masks than when I'm in, say, Bedford or Lexington or Billerica. And Burlington has a lot of restaurants, and those restaurants are very crowded. And when people are waiting for their table, they're all congregating together, and many of them are wearing masks and many of them are not. So it does concern me, and I'd like to hear from the Board of Health, what is the best thing for our health as a community, not whether or not it's difficult to manage. Thank you.
Okay. Would a member of the board like to speak to that? Dr. Saltzman, since you are not only a member but a physician, would you like to address that first?
Sure. I guess Barbara, I'm not getting the logistical piece, but I do appreciate your question and your thoughts. I would have, so, one of my fans, I'm a fan of the director of public health for one of the Rhode Island hospitals. He's on TV and quoted all the time, Dr. Ashish Jha, who said, we have the science part of this and we have the social science part of this. And the social science part of this and, changing behaviors it has become more, as important as the science. We're aware of the science. We know how this thing spreads. I would have absolutely no problem, especially trying to be consistent with how the board has looked at its citizens and also its businesses in the same light with equal respect. I would have no problem with, as I've mentioned before, with our individual entities, our restaurants, saying we require masks in order to eat here. I'd have no problem with offering that ability to our members. No shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. And I would respect that, as opposed to mandating and the issues that we've already discussed that fall with that. So, but with regard to the public health issue, Barbara, I'm going to hold fast to what I've already said. We have to we understand the science behind this. We need to take responsibility for not just ourselves, but our community. We need to help others change their behaviors as well. And, I'm not sure what else to say, but the science behind mask mandates has not at least proven to me that mask mandates are the answer, do work. but I would go with my previous comments as well. And once again, I thank you for speaking up as a leader in our community.
Susan Luminello, you would like to speak?
Yes, I just want to add to that. This isn't about that we don't think that we can do it. We don't think that we can enforce it. We've been enforcing these, not only a mask mandate, but COVID standards for under basically every type of business. When we had the emergency, during the emergency, we did this. We did a mask mandate. We did COVID standards for just about every sector there was. And we did case management all at the same time. So it's not just about can we do this or can we not do this? It's also about, I think what Dr. Saltzman is saying is how do we move forward? How do we move beyond this emergency situation? This is going to be here for a while. We need people to start taking personal responsibility for this. Number one. Number two, like I had previously said, we don't have that statewide mandate, the statewide COVID standards, the statewide limits on gatherings. We don't have all of those things in place at this time. So masking is just one small part of that. And I think if we did have a mandate, I'm confident that my staff would step up and be able to do what they need to do. But the question is how do we move forward beyond the emergency type of situation, because COVID's going to be here for a while, and how long do we keep such a mandate in? Because at some point we're moving beyond the emergency in this, and COVID is going to become endemic.
Thank you. Next person, let me see who the next person is here. I'm getting there. I'm sorry. It's a little. Philip McLean, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, first of all, I appreciate this board's sensible attitude toward respecting other people's decisions. I've watched you give out 2 building permits to some pretty high-power businesses, and there's a reason that Burlington is attracting that type of construction and business. You're going to be giving a lot of jobs to people, and they want to come to Burlington for a reason, and it's because I think your board and the way you run your town is pretty sensible. I live in towns or surrounded by towns that have mandates. If you go to those towns at 8 o'clock at night, the streets are wrapped up. There's no life in those streets. I was in Boston last week in the middle of the week, and because of their mandates, Boston's a dying town. There's a particular reason why I come to Burlington with my family if I want to go to a restaurant. It's because if you go there, you feel like there's some life. If people choose to wear their masks, which most do, I see more people wearing masks than not, and they do that by their own free will, then they can wear their masks. And you don't feel restricted, and I can actually see people's emotions and stuff if I go to a restaurant and they're deciding not to wear their masks. They've made their choice. So your sensible mask recommendation is working for your town, and it's working for the people, because I don't think you're seeing your residents be threatened by excess disease or anything like that. All towns, whether they have a mandate or not, are facing the same situation. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you very much. I now have, and if Steve Stam, I see you, Steve.
Yes, okay.
You have the floor.
I see you too. And yes, I'd like to thank the board and the Department of Health for everything they've been doing, recognizing that you've been on the forefront for 2 years now. But I think back about the beginning of this, and a certain individual high in government saying, oh, don't worry about it. We don't have to do anything else. It'll go away by itself. Well, obviously that didn't happen. And so what I hear now is we don't need to change what we're doing. It's going to go away by itself. And that's what I hear. Now, whether that's what you intend to say is a different story, but that's the message coming. Now, I represent a very rigid, whatever, senior that basically is on the endangered species list. Um, and so I'm very, very sensitive to the issue or any issue that that could increase the chances of me or other members of my family getting COVID-19. And so I've thought about some of the things that have been brought up. And, a mask mandate, what the pluses and minuses. Yeah, it might, if it was done the wrong way, require, some police work. But I don't think that that's necessary. I think it could be done without the police work. I think that if a mask mandate was in place, it would show the people of the town that we are serious about masks. A mask advisory, as was just stated, some people say, well, that's considered optional. Well, that's true. That's how they think about it. There's no question a mandate is not optional. And it also gives a business owner a reason to put a sign up and to ask people to mask up without being, that's not his fault, and without losing his customers. And so I think that's an important point in this, that a business can enact its own mandate. Now, somebody said that the governor said he doesn't want a mask mandate. That isn't what I heard him say. He doesn't want to initiate a statewide mandate, was what he actually said. And, he has no problem with individual areas indicate, basically requiring what they think is needed for their areas. And so I think that's a very important point. I think it's important that businesses post signage and request that people wear masks, and a mandate allows them to do that. The other thing is, a mandate, I think, would stop policemen and firemen and other town employees from walking into businesses unmasked, which they do today. I don't know how many people have told me, oh yeah, we've seen a police in there and they're unmasked, or we've seen a fire in there and they're unmasked. Well, that, to me, that's not the Burlington that we want. And also to me, that's a risk to me personally. The okay, mandates can, there may be details in there that need to be worked out, and I'm sure they can. The people on this board are some of the sharpest people we know, and I'm sure you can figure out something that's workable. We can lift them when we need to, but right now, the numbers are skyrocketing, and we need them until we get this back down and under control. Okay, the other thing is, we are now doing our shopping in other towns that have mask mandates. And I can't tell you how many others are and how much business is being lost. So that's something for you to consider and for the businesses to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stam. Lois Smith Martin, you were the last on our list, although I'll ask anyone else. Are you there, Ms. Martin?
Yes, I am. Thank you for calling on me. I want to thank the Board of Health for all the work they've done in the last 2 years. This has been exceptional time, difficult time for them, and they've done a terrific job. I want to let you know how I feel about the mask and the mask mandate. Burlington is behind all the towns surrounding them as far as the mask mandate is put into effect. Masks help keep our residents safe from all that come into the town during the day. We have a lot of industry and stores bringing in outside business and people are coming in with infections. Infections are at a higher rate right now, and I think it is our responsibility as a town to make our town as safe as possible. And I agree with Steve Stam that I feel that the governor is leaving it up to the towns to put in the mask mandate. He's not making it a statewide mandate. He's leaving it up to the community. And I have two friends that live in other towns that won't come into Burlington to shop. They're going to other towns, for instance, Trader Joe's in Arlington, to shop because we don't have a mask here. If we had a mask mandate, stores could say to people coming in, you have to put a mask on. I was in a store in Reading today, and a couple in front of my husband and I went to walk in the store, and they didn't have masks on, and they were told to put the mask on, which they did. That would happen here. Salem put a mask mandate in their town, and the shop owners up there and the residents were glad of it because they could say to people coming in, you have to wear a mask.
Well, thank you
And
very much.
well, I haven't finished. As far as educating people, that's great. We have gone very far in educating people, and we haven't gone far in educating people. Not everybody is educated. That would be wonderful if they were. If people coming in from New Hampshire or these other states were educated and came in and did social distancing and put a mask on, that would be great. But that isn't happening. People are not educated. And I don't know how you're going to do that. I don't know how you're going to do that to outsiders, but it isn't happening. And I have another question for you, which is a little different. Does the Board of Health have the ability to go to town shut-ins for shots, boosters, tests? Do they have that ability to do that?
Susan, I'll let
yes.
Susan Luminello. I could answer that, but I'll let Susan.
So there is a state program that will come to people's homes. I believe it's up on our website, but certainly call our office if you can't get to our website, and we can give you the phone number for that. We are not going, the Board of Health itself is not going to individual homes, although we are holding booster clinics. We have one actually tomorrow. But we're not doing homebound type of visits.
Okay.
And let me say,
I also have a immune compromised system, and I don't go out that much. I don't know who next to me is vaccinated or not, especially if they don't have a mask on, because typically somebody that doesn't have a mask on probably is not vaccinated.
thank you very much, Ms. Martin. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak?
Mr. Chairman, we have Jeff DeBona next.
Mr. DeBona, would you like to speak?
Hi, how you doing?
Please.
Jeff DeBona, town meeting member, precinct 3. So I was asked by a few people to come here and talk on their behalf, and what I've been saying, what I've been hearing from them is people don't want to see a mandate. Mandates only cause further divide amongst people. We've been doing this almost 2 years. And we're not seeing any sort of real difference with things are mandated or not. People need to make decisions for themselves. We're seeing data with other towns that have mask mandates, and their cases are sky high as well. There's no real difference between a dividing line in the ground that says this is one town, this is another. People need to take personal responsibility with it. That's all I got to say. And thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you. Again, Sarah Quartermash, is there anybody else online or anyone else who'd like to speak?
Nikki Cadillac is next.
Ms. Cadillac, please speak. Please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nikki Cadillac. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 6. I'll try to make this brief. I've said a lot in the chat, but I just want to make sure that that all of those things are sort of collated into one place. Apologies, I'm not going to be able to remember everybody's name, but I probably will cite somebody who has spoken tonight. Somebody mentioned how do we sort of get past this state of emergency, and the truth is that we are in the middle of a state of emergency right now. So getting past it is going to be a matter of not having, 65,000 cases on a Tuesday in the state of Massachusetts. As I mentioned in the chat, part of living in a community is taking responsibility for each other, right? We live here so that we can take care of each other. And so, doing your part in wearing a mask isn't as much a matter of personal freedom as it is responsibility for protecting the people around you. Like I mentioned in the chat, I have a toddler who can't wear a mask. I also have a parent who's undergoing chemotherapy. If either of those two got sick, and especially at a time like now when the hospitals are overrun with patients, I don't know what would happen if one of them got too sick, so sick that they needed to go to the hospital. That goes the same for other people who can't get vaccinated, etc. I hear a lot of like abdication of responsibility from a lot of different places. The town is saying that the state should make a mandate, and then the town is also saying that individual businesses can make their own mandates, but where is the actual accountability? The state is saying that the town should make mandates, the towns are saying that the state should make mandates. Like somebody's got to do something. Also, like I feel like this conversation started out by saying all of the ways that this wasn't manageable and isn't enforceable to make a mandate, and I feel like that's not the way to get buy-in from the community. And I feel like it sounds like the board's decision was already made before the conversation ever started. The last thing I want to say is just that having a mandate gives cover to both establishments and also individuals who want to wear masks and feel comfortable wearing masks, but don't feel comfortable for whatever reason because of society and peer pressure sort of issues. So that is all I will say, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Sarah,
There was one person prior to Nikki, which is Patrick Aban.
Patrick Aban, are you there, please?
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'll be real quick. I've been wearing a mask for decades professionally. Get fitted, it's a professional fit by a person who been trained to do just that. And if you don't wear a mask properly, then you just have a piece of fabric or material on your face, and you're still breathing in what you don't want to breathe in. And everywhere I go where there's a mask mandate or people wearing a mask, I see just fabric on the face of an individual. I'm not seeing what they think is a filter. So it's not really working. If you are in favor of wearing a mask or you're a proponent of it, then you need to wear something properly. And it blows my mind that we would have a mask mandate and we would feel great just having this little piece of fabric on our face. It's a false sense of security. And I don't know how you would enforce people properly wearing a mask that actually is fit well and designed to filter out something that is what, 0.3 microns wide? There's a lot of people on this call a lot smarter than me. You can tell the crowd in a much more educated way than I can what it would take to filter out something that small. I see facial hair on everybody. We would have to shave our faces and wear masks that would be snugly fit to our skin in order to prevent this from entering our body. So that is why I would not want to see a mask mandate, because there's no way that you can actually get one to be effective. There are other tools in the toolbox. I've heard this. I love that saying. Please keep saying it, because that makes the most sense. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Do I have any, Sarah, again, please?
We have, excuse me if I pronounce this incorrectly, but Carmela Schmelzel.
Yes, that's me. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you all for all the hard work that you've been doing. It's amazing to see the work that you have done for this community. I've been here for roughly 11 years, and I love this town, and I really don't want to go anywhere else. I am against mandates. The reason that I'm against mandates is exactly what Patrick just said too. It is not something, you cannot find the right mask that is going to work. People use their masks not in a sanitary manner. I get very actually uncomfortable seeing some people wearing the mask, because I see them thinking to myself, when was the last time they washed this mask? When was the last time they actually changed this disposable mask and what have you? And as Mr. Chairman, you mentioned this earlier, the CDC has already said that cloth masks are not recommended anymore, and etc. So at this point, I do have to also say that my background is, I do come from a country that we have very strict guidelines. I come from Iran, which there's a lot of laws and regulations and no freedom. I came here to this country so that myself and my family would be free. I do social distance. I do not get close to people. I barely leave my house, but it is my choice. And I am not asking other people to do something for me. I do things for me and my family. And as you can see already in chat, there is a lot of arguments happening over wanting mask mandate and not wanting mask mandates. And that is the problem with this conversation. There is no middle ground, and no matter what we do, no matter what decision that is made, somebody is going to be upset. So the best case is for everyone to just do the right thing, make your choice. And this America is the country that people have freedom to do and make a choice. This is not a third world country like where I come from, that other people make a choice for you and you have to obey it. And that's another thing that I heard from someone saying, people need to obey the mask mandates. That to me is a red flag, and that should not be something that we should even discuss it in America. This is the land of free, and I want to again thank you very much for all the hard work that you do, and thanks for the opportunity for speaking.
Thank you very much. At this point in time, yes, Sarah?
I believe there might be one more that wasn't in the chat, but they have their hand raised. The username is just the letter M.
Yes, who is that? Please announce yourself, your name, please. If you're going to speak, please give us your name. Last call for M. Okay, thank you very much. Well, here we go. We have heard everybody. I will not have an open mind. I've heard everybody. This has been quite a discussion. At this point in time, the Board of Health needs to make a decision. And this decision is A, we have a motion for a mask mandate and we vote. We have also to do nothing and to bring this to a meeting 2 weeks from now and rediscuss it. Or I guess that's it. So to that end, I ask the board first, board members, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Mr. Chairman, I think there was one more resident that would like to speak that didn't get an opportunity to, and
I would like everybody to speak.
yeah, Asenti, I think is the comment in the chat.
Adam Sinesi. I'm a resident of Precinct 1, and I've been hopping along a couple of different town meetings tonight on WebEx, but I think one issue that hasn't been brought up, I am the father of an autistic child, and I will say that, you know, obviously we've seen that this pandemic has exacerbated every issue, regardless of what that issue is and how closely you would think that affects health. Issues have been exacerbated by the pandemic. But one thing that I want to say as the father of an autistic child, that my son has a really difficult time wearing the mask. Our family respects. We've all gotten vaccinated, including our children. We've been boosted, but I do feel like we've put a lot of pain on the children. And I'm frankly tired of my son having to wear a mask everywhere in public because it's impossible to keep it on him. He's 11 years old, and I think, you know, we're really doing, he gets more dirty looks, and he doesn't understand what's going on, and it just doesn't seem fair to these people for really what I think is minimal upside with the masks when people have had the opportunity to get vaccinated. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinesi.
You're
Well,
welcome.
here we
Thank you.
are again. First of all, I got to thank Sarah Kordemarsh. Sarah, this has been very difficult tonight. You handled it beautifully, as always, as our IT administrator. I don't want to forget, and I want to tell you right now, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll leave this open now to the board. As I think you know where some of us feel. Do I have a motion for anything, or do we just continue this discussion? I need a motion to move forward with anything we want.
Mr. Chair, my only concern about any type of formal decision or formal recommendation from this board is that we don't have a full board. I think that puts us at a deficit. So I definitely do want to hear and respect Ms. Welch's thoughts and concerns on this. And so I would not feel comfortable. I know how I feel, but I would not feel comfortable making any type of formal recommendation without a full board.
Thank you, Dr. Salzman. I will say, though, we cannot always wait. We can decide not to go forward and to, as we have promised, both you and I, as a subcommittee, have promised to bring this up from time to time at board meetings. We have done that multiple times. The board has decided to move to take an advisory opinion at this point. But if there's anybody who would like to make a motion right now, I would need a motion that we can go forward and discuss. If not, if I can't get a motion out of anybody, then we're just going to have to put this off and leave it as a discussion until the next meeting. It is clear that there are people on this board who may or may not want to bring this forward.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a recommendation? Because I do, you know, when I was speaking, I started out by saying that, you know, I come to this discussion particularly, but obviously every board meeting with an open mind, with no preconceived notions. And certainly I was dead set against mask mandates, and I don't know if my opinions necessarily swayed too much for that. But, you know, I do think, at least from my perspective, and I think I've said this in prior meetings as well, that there could be instances where, you know, maybe certain businesses or industries or situations that it may be make sense to talk about it. And I'm not suggesting that we go down that path, but I do think, from my perspective, maybe it's worth another subcommittee meeting to talk about. It's maybe not yes or no, but maybe there's a middle ground, and would respect the comments and or recommendation that a subcommittee meeting specifically around that might have around that.
Whether we approve or disapprove, we're going to need another subcommittee meeting anyway, because this would be, I'm going to, since the board does not wants to keep discussing this, I'm going to ask Mr. Priest from the select board. You and I talked about the possibility of working together with the selectmen and coming up with some type of a solution if I could not find common ground on this board. And I said, if we did nothing, can we at least create posters that provide recommendations to move to, at least to bring it to the attention all over town, to wear a mask? If I can't get a motion tonight, and that's something we could go forward. Is it possible that the Board of Selectmen, and Mr. Sagarino says you do have the money, is there some way that at least I could work with, or I would say our leadership on the Board of Health could work with Mr. Sagarino in putting together some type of a poster and get them out, because I want to do something.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. I think that if you want to, create posters that further the mask advisory or other recommendations to educate the town, absolutely.
We would have to find someone to put one together for us. I'm not a graphic artist.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to continue the recommendation for a mask advisory in the town of Burlington, but move forward with additional means that you're talking about, and that the subcommittee can further review with town leaders, namely the select board and administration, on how to further the message of the mask advisory.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion and I have a second, and could someone read me back?
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry. It's getting late, and I
No,
can't.
essentially, the motion, Mr. Chair, is that the Board of Health recommends to continue the mask advisory for the town of Burlington, and that the subcommittee meet with members of the select board or their delegate and town administration to further education and information regarding the mask advisory throughout the town.
Dawn, do you have that? Dawn McDowell?
Every word.
Oh, you're wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you. If that's the motion for this evening, is there any other discussion on this?
The only discussion that I would say, Mr. Chair, is once again my appreciation for those who have attended this meeting and who have spoken up as citizens within our community out of concern for this issue. I very much appreciate it, and I very much have welcomed it. Thank you.
And I'm gonna regret saying this, but as everybody who's on this line on tonight know, who is not part of our board, or but I know that all the elected, that I'm open to discussion. I have spoken to many of you already one-on-one, where I would like to possibly move forward at some point. It's like tonight, I don't think we have the interest by my board moving forward, except to continue this discussion and to do something around, I see it as education and to try to have people understand. I've talked myself blue in the face with people to please get vaccinated. In many cases, to no avail, and many, and I have confronted some about wearing masks, and to really no avail. So I have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Ms. Sheehan, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Well, I did agree with Dr. Salzman saying that I would, love for Mary Beth Welsh to weigh in, because I think the five of us as a team need to decide what direction. So I don't know if there's a way we could do an emergency meeting for the board to further this discussion as opposed to waiting 2 weeks, because time is against us in this situation. And I feel we need to act quicker and more, sooner than later. So is that a possibility?
That is we could talk about that. It's scheduling and can I get everybody together? It's difficult enough for us to get 5 people here at a meeting. And for an emergency meeting, unless it's truly an emergency, and this is quite priority. You know how I feel about this. It's quite priority. And I thank you. But we have had many situations where individuals have not been able to attend. And this is always an issue for every board within the community. But thank you very much. I know at least we have to have a subcommittee meeting. And we can have a subcommittee meeting. As far as a full meeting, I think we need at least between ourselves and see where we can go, because clearly the board is split. It's totally split.
Correct.
So with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve. Mr. McSweeney,
I already seconded his motion, Mr. Chairman.
I understand. All in
Oh.
favor, Mr.
Oh,
McSweeney.
I'm sorry. Aye.
We're voting. Okay.
Dr. Saltzman,
Aye.
Andrea Sheehan,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That's 4-0-0. I think it's to be discussed. I want to discuss this more because I think we need to, at some point, make a decision. So I want to thank everybody who got on tonight. I really appreciate you being here. It is not easy. And you were extremely professional tonight. Cordial, professional, respectful, as I would expect people in my community to be. Thank you for being so well spoken and understanding. You're all welcome to stay. I have staff reports, environmental engineer. Is there, I'm calling upon Christine Mathis. Is there anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, just a quick update. I worked with our new associate director and Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, so much to get the biological safety permit renewals out over the past week or so, and those have all been sent out and are due back at the end of the month. We have an ever increasing number of companies seeking those permits, so the workload is still quite busy. With that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Does anyone have any questions for Christine Mathis? I just have one, Christine. What about the individual with flooding in the backyard? Have we had any serious rain for you to go out and take a look?
No, and again, the understanding was that that individual would contact me when they felt that there was a problem for me to come see, and I have not been contacted.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. There are no other questions? Over the questions, can I have a motion for approval for the environmental engineer?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
moved.
Okay, motion by David McSweeney, second by Dr. Wayne Saltzman. All in favor, Mr. McSweeney,
Aye.
Dr. Saltzman,
Aye.
Ms. Sheehan,
Aye.
and I vote aye, 4-0-0. Okay, the next is Associate Director of Public Health. Mr. Michael Green, this is it. Really your first go around.
we
Do you
made
have
it.
anything you would like to, that you would like to highlight in your report?
I'd say the big one was a lot of training this week, actually this month, getting up to speed on Maven. We were going through a lot of cases and contact tracing, especially for the school-aged children, and managing that and keeping the isolation and quarantine database for the schools up to date. I think it was Chris, Susan, and I were kind of going nuts with that one. So that was a busy one. And then also working on the combined community health fair with the rec department. We'll get that. We're trying to get that all put together, and some of the fun this week.
Is the health fair scheduled for sometime late spring or early summer? I hope.
Yes, I believe we're looking at May 21st.
Okay,
It's going to be outside, so we're hoping for good weather.
thank you. Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I happily approve, or happily make a motion to approve. Thank you, Michael.
I'll second it.
Good, I have a motion by Wayne Saltzman, second by Andrea Sheehan. All in favor, David McSweeney,
Aye.
Wayne Saltzman,
Aye.
Andrea Sheehan,
Aye.
and I vote aye, 4-0-0. And the last is the Director of Public Health. Now, as you know, we have a number of different, under her tutelage, under her staff. We have first, and each one of these, I'm sorry, is 2 weeks, because we, as you remember, we did not meet around Christmas time. So the first one I'm going to ask is Christine Pollock. Does anybody have any questions about Christine Pollock's? I just have one. Boy, a lot of schools are calling Christine Pollock. I know that she has been living on the phone. I have not had multiple calls with you. I've had many calls with you and with her. She's really become the expert in this with the schools.
Yeah, so we've had to, the phones, it's calming down now, but in the past few weeks have just become overwhelming. For a little while, we had to put a message on the phone asking people to leave messages and call them back, because people were calling me, calling Chris, hanging up, calling again, and we were duplicating efforts. So we have a system now where we have one spreadsheet. We're having the admins answer the phones, we're taking messages, and we're getting back to people as soon as possible, because of all the COVID questions. She's been dealing with not only the cases that have come through Maven, but all of the home tests. So people have a lot of questions regarding the home test. What do I do if I tested positive? That type of thing. And we're providing guidance to people. We've had to come, there's been changes since our last meeting with the CDC. So with the new CDC regulations, we've been providing guidance to people on that. So yeah, so the phones have been overwhelming, and but we are getting back to everybody within 1 to 2 days at the most. So both Chris, myself, and Mike have been working on answering people's questions with regard to COVID.
Thank you. Please tell her thank you from the board.
I will.
Any other questions for the 2 weeks for our supervisory nurse? If not, do I have a motion for approval? No, I'm sorry, we don't need one. We're doing it all under the auspices of the Director of Public Health. Marlene Johnson is the next person, the next subgroup under you, and please, before we even highlight, on behalf of this community and behalf of this board, please again note to Marlene Johnson, who has been with us for 16 years, our condolences and our thoughts on the death of her father. Please offer her our condolences again. And I want the community to know she has been a wonderful, committed professional for this community, and was sad to see a death in her family. Is there anything else that you'd like to highlight, Susan?
With regards to Marlene's report, no.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have one question, just as it relates to, it's the first time I've seen it, but it was somebody applying for a tattoo studio, and it looks like that it's only certain zoning would allow for that. Where would we allow for, where is that zoning? Where would we allow for something like that? And it's not
So
just tattoos, it's piercings and microblading. I don't even know what that is, but.
Right, and that's overseen by the building department. So I don't know exactly where those areas of town are, but there are 2 or 3 areas of town that are specifically zoned for tattooing, and that we get a lot of calls, people wanting to open up tattoo parlors or microblading. And, we have to tell them, go to the building department first, because that's the first hurdle that they really need to get through, is to get in the right area if they want to open. And there has to be, a vacancy in that area if they want to open a tattoo shop. So that was the case with this one. They had to go to the building department to find out, where those areas were, and then they look to see if there's any vacancy in those areas. And then if there is, then they would come to the Board of Health to get the appropriate permit.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for our health inspector, the health agent? Which brings us to our associate health inspector, Samantha Hardy. Does anyone have any questions, or is there anything you'd like to, first is Susan. Susan, is there anything you'd like to highlight? Does anyone have any questions about the report from our associate health inspector, Samantha Hardy? Good, we can move on. And last, our director of public health. Does anybody have, Susan, is there anything you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I just want to let the board know that I've been in conversations with the superintendent of schools and the assistant superintendent over the weekend and today regarding how they're going to move forward. I have spoken to them before about issues that I've seen with the test and stay program, and they've decided now that they're gonna change how they're doing the test and stay program. They're gonna still stay in it, but they're gonna test for those that are in quarantine on day 5 rather than sooner than that. I think one of the issues, the problems that we were seeing before Christmas was, if somebody gets tested on day 1, day 2, that may be too soon. And then they get tested on day 3 and they're positive, and they were just in school for while they were contagious on those first 2 days. So they're going to be making some changes around that. I guess they were talking about it at the school committee tonight. And they're also going to be doing the 5 days. They're going to stick with the 5 days, change over to the CDC requirements. If you test positive, 5 days at home, 5 days of strict masking. If you are exposed, 5 days at home, get tested on day 6, followed by 5 days of the strict masking if they're negative.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Susan Luminello?
I will say too, one other thing. We are becoming, with such high percent positivity, we are not able to get to everybody in town who tests positive. It's just not possible anymore. We cannot do all those cases. So I think DPH is leaning, may need to make some changes as far as the Maven system goes and how case management is done. Contact tracing works. It's one of the things that we can use. However, when you're at such a high percent positivity, we're not able to do it, and we're having a very small effect on prevention because of the high percent positivity rate through case management.
Any questions for Susan? I have two. Susan, this board book you provided us, a DESE DPH protocols for responding to COVID-19 scenarios in schools. And I have gone through this document multiple times, and it is extremely confusing. It is very confusing. I don't know what to do about that. Whoever put it together, I don't know how they could put this together and to send this out. It is just a matrix of craziness. It's so difficult, and I've read it 3 or 4 times. I can't comprehend any of our school nurses or any having a quick understanding of this. You've got to go through it many times, and maybe if this is going to stay in enforcing, maybe at some point we probably need to have some type of a session so all the nurses understand this, because it is just craziness. And I'm just trying to say this to keep all of these questions off your back. It is just amazing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I did talk about with the superintendent is that because of the introduction of the home tests, and we don't have any control on knowing who tests positive or what people's individual situations are. People, again, back to personal responsibility. If your child tests positive, you need to keep them home for the required amount of days. So parents need to understand and become responsible for keeping their child home when they're sick, knowing what the isolation guidelines are, knowing what the quarantine guidelines are. And I think a lot of that document has to do with the confusion of this test and stay program, which what Eric and I discussed was how to simplify that so it is not so confusing. So that's what they're trying to move forward with now. And another thing is providing, I think it worked out last year, but not, I think moving forward, providing a quarantine list to the schools, it's just not working for us. We just have too many cases to even cover the amount of positive kids and to call all of them at this point. So people need to take responsibility and make sure their kids stay home for the required amount of time.
Thank you
And
very
they're
much.
not going to provide testing, I believe. So they're going to talk a little bit about that, about the tests, purchasing the tests, and providing those to parents so parents can test their children at home.
Is the town of Burlington going to get any tests?
So they were going to talk about tonight ordering tests. This is what I spoke to Eric about this afternoon. And one of the issues is that you have to buy these tests in bulk. And it's something like 9,000 tests or something. So they're looking into that. We were looking into the test. That was something that Mike was working on. Part of the issues with the testing that Mike had seen was that each test doesn't come with a reagent. So it's more like a bulk testing than individual testing. So that was an issue with the tests that you can purchase through Combi. So we were looking at, but Eric did offer, because they're probably going to have to get so many tests, of providing some to the Board of Health so that we can give them out to people as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Susan Luminello?
Yeah, I don't have a question, Mr. Chair. I just have 2 comments with regard to director's past statements. One is that these tests, many of them have shelf lives, like 30 days, just bringing that to bear. And there is information coming out that the rapid tests are are not sensitive to Omicron, and so which is leading to a lot of false negatives. So I know that Director already is well aware of this information, but I just want to make sure our community is aware that about these tests.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. So a lot of what we tell people too is that you can't always rely on these tests. If you have symptoms, stay home. And stay home for the required 5 days and continue to mask after that. Even if your test, if you have a home test and it comes out negative and you're symptomatic.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for our Director of Public Health or any of the other individuals, the nurse, the health agent, the inspector, anybody else? If
With-
not, I'll make a motion to approve the Director of Public Health's report.
With great appreciation, I make a motion to approve the director's report.
Thank you. Motion by Dr. Saltzman, second by David McSweeney. All in favor? David McSweeney,
Aye.
Dr. Saltzman,
Aye.
Andrea Sheehan,
Aye.
and I vote aye, 4-0-0. Well, that's it. We've had a very long meeting. I think we've had a good meeting. It says we've been on at 2 hours and 37 minutes and 52 seconds, which is very long for us. No, maybe it's not. Yeah, it's been that long. At least I've been on that long. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn. Adjourn.
I was waiting. I don't want to sit here any longer. Second, please.
Second.
A second by Wayne Saltzman. All in favor, David McSweeney,
Aye.
Dr. Saltzman,
Aye.
Andrea Sheehan,
Aye.
and Ed Weiner. Aye. Thank you so much tonight. I'm worn out. So we're done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Good night now.
Stay safe, everybody. Stay safe.
Safe.